You've heard women make 80 cents to men's dollar. A new report said more like 49 cents. Every year on, we hear that women in America make about 80 cents for every dollar men earn. For many. But matters are actually worse than any of these numbers would suggest, according to by the IWPR, a think tank that looks at public policy through the lens of gender. Measures of the pay gap. To account for this, the report's authors looked at women's earnings across a 15-year period, and compared those with men's. What they found was that men lost income when they dropped out of the labor force too, of course. But women were far. The commonly used figure to describe the gender wage ratio had a woman earns 80 cents for every dollar earned by a man who understates the pay inequality problem by leaving many women workers out of the picture. Authors Stephen J. Rose, a labor economist and fellow at the, and Heidi I. Hardman, the founder of IWPR and an economist in residence at American University, argue in their report, titled specifically, "It Leaves Out Women Who Have Dropped Out of the Labor Force Temporarily, Often to Care for Family." To include those women, Rose and Hartman tracked the earnings of individual women and men over three 15-year periods, 1968 to 1982, 1983 to 1997, and 2001 to 2015. They used data from the gaps they found were stark between 1968 and 1982. Women's earnings were 19% of men's. Between the gaps are so big in large part because women were much more likely to take time off work. Between 2000, women also tended to suffer a greater wage penalty for taking time out of the labor force. The effect didn't. One big reason women drop out of the labor force at higher rates than men is that they're far more likely to be the primary caregivers for children or sick relatives. Meanwhile, women and men were about equally likely to say they'd recently taken time off to care for a sick family member, but women had taken slightly more time off than men. And women who did. Another way to look at these gender differences is to compare men and women who leave the labor force. In a 2000, Rose and Hartman's work drives home the fact that, as has written, the gender wage gap is really a child care penalty or, perhaps, just a care penalty, with women more likely to shoulder primary care responsibility for all family members, not just children. Some women, just like some men, choose to take time off work to care for children or other relatives, and some find this care deeply rewarding. But whether they want to. Meanwhile, paid family leave for many American workers is infinitesimal or non-existent, meaning that for those who do need to take care of a family member, there's often no choice but to quit work. And the fact that, as Rose and Hartman note, paid family leave, available and used by both men and women, would likely help close the gap. So would subsidy. Whatever the solutions are, though, Rose and Hartman's report is a reminder that when we think about policies to close the pay gap, we can't just look at what working men and women are making in a given year. We have to look at the
raindrop, truck top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.